So what's really profound about the moment we find ourselves in right now is that an end of an epoch has snuck up on us. When we think of blockchain, a lot of people think of it, or crypto, a lot of people think of it as a really rapidly moving field. But the truth is, it's a field that moves at a glacial pace. There's just a ton of noise out there. There's tons of projects, people jostling for a position in the limelight of what is, for the most part, a highly speculative industry. But there, in fact, are key inflection moments. There are chapters that we can see the beginning and the end of certain periods of development. One such chapter began in 2014, maybe the end of 2013. And during that period, we saw the emergence of a new type of blockchain or crypto project. Colored coins was a design pattern that attempted to use very small pieces of Bitcoin as a tool for tracking assets, things we might refer to as NFTs. This extended into tracking shares and arbitrary different types of assets. And the colored coin idea was picked up by several different companies, one of which, Monetas, was based in Zug, with the thought that this could become the next internet of money. As history would have it, this didn't happen, but there were other similar platforms that tried to take advantage of this design pattern or using Bitcoin as a layer for tracking the movement of assets. The most successful of these Internet of Money type platforms that were built on Bitcoin was called Counterparty. And Counterparty essentially laid out the groundwork for everything we see being done with tokens today. And this is back in 2014. So we had access tokens, community currencies, NFTs. Spells of Genesis was a card game based on NFTs that were tracked on the Bitcoin blockchain. Tons and tons of unique cryptocurrencies. It had its own native cryptocurrency, XCP. It was everything that we see today was absolutely familiar to people who were in the space back in 14. There were many other projects similar to Counterparty that took a more proprietary approach, attempted to divorce themselves from the challenges of building on Bitcoin and tried to take the technology a step further. The two most important of these early platforms were BitShares and NXT. NXT was uniquely interesting because rather than being a general purpose blockchain as we think of them, NXT came up with a prescribed set of products that they thought would be useful and of value to the community. And these are products that we'd be familiar with today: a decentralized exchange, an asset registry, domain name service. These are things that we take for granted as being valuable as part of Ethereum. Mostly just based on the minting and exchange of tokens and the recording of decentralized or permanent registries of either assets or addresses. One of the main thrusts of the NXT platform was to create this new type of consensus. Consensus is the way that a network of computers come to agreement about the state of the network. Bitcoin has to use consensus to determine who has which Bitcoin. Ethereum also has to run a consensus algorithm to ensure that the state of its smart contracts is uniform across the network. This is what makes these useful financial platforms. NXT had the idea that they could make a new type of consensus system that was extremely fast, inexpensive to run, not like Bitcoin or Ethereum that use multiple gigawatts of electricity to maintain. The way that a network like Ethereum or Bitcoin achieves consensus and remains secure is by randomly selecting a leader to decide what the state of the network is at any given moment, and also check that the leader prior to them wasn't cheating some way or didn't forge something. And this is actually fundamental to making something like Bitcoin work, because if someone can predict that they are going to be the next leader, then there's the opportunity for them to perform some nefarious act, become the leader, and then add that act to the blockchain. And then if they can maybe manipulate the randomness and find themselves a leader a second time, then they can use that opportunity to further solidify this nefarious act within the blockchain. And this is the reason why randomness is so important. It's so that no one can sneakily make changes knowing that they will be essentially the referee of their own football game. What all of these 2014 projects have in common is that they just couldn't solve this consensus problem. Or if they could, they couldn't solve it at scale. And they couldn't solve meaningful problems or produce meaningful products with what they'd created. And a lot of this came down to the inability to generate randomness. These seemed like difficult but solvable problems, but it turned out they were extraordinarily difficult. So by way of a measurement of how difficult these are, Ethereum had its genesis in 2014, launched in 2015. They still have not managed to solve that problem in 2021, and they are by far the most funded blockchain project in the world. It's extraordinarily challenging to solve this kind of computer science problem. That said, several other platforms have managed to come up with solutions. Among these projects is Dfinity. Dominic Williams, the founder of Dfinity, humorously enough, was in the NXT forums back in 2014, waiting, like so many other people, with bated breath for the emergence of this incredible new randomness generation algorithm. Sadly, it just never happened. And like so many people in 2014, he left that forum frustrated and dejected, and with a sense of being generally ripped off, as was everyone in 2014, because all of these ideas and plans that people had made just were never going to come true. It was incredibly disillusioning. And it did lead to a mass exodus from the blockchain space until Ethereum came along in 2015. In 2016, Dom came up with a new way of generating randomness that he called threshold relay. Dom had been a technology entrepreneur prior to coming up with this new way of generating randomness. He actually was the creator of a multiplayer online game called Fight My Monster. And in the process of building Fight My Monster, he'd had to build servers and run essentially a network of computers for the purpose of hosting this online multiplayer game. So he had an idea of the problems that developers of this kind of application faced. And he had the idea as well that maybe randomness and blockchain could be applied to solving these problems. And therein lies the genesis of the internet computer. Fast forward to 2020, and a range of other projects have approached fruition in their efforts to achieve this new blockchain platform that can deliver all of the things that people imagined back in 2014. Among these, Cardano, founded by Charles Hoskinson of the Ethereum Foundation, Polkadot, founded by Gavin Wood of the Ethereum Foundation as well, Solana, founded by Anatoly, someone. Hedera Hashgraph was another really interesting one that came out around then. I know nothing about Hedera Hashgraph, but it seems amazing and everyone says good stuff. So, that's another one as well. Algorand is another interesting one that is totally focused on randomness. Like, these people realized that randomness was extremely important. But one has to wonder, in the pursuit of solving this problem of randomness, which by all accounts they did they also manage to produce a compelling product that was of any use to anyone? Maybe, I don't know. So during 2020, the internet computer, led by Dom, is approaching completion. It's actually reaching a state of launchability, shall we say, as are all of these other platforms. And with these newly developed platforms, new opportunities to build new applications emerge. And in the meantime, people have been coming up with ideas for new applications. Decentralized finance has blossomed on Ethereum. It can do all sorts of great things. It just might cost you $50 to $500 for a transaction and take 10 minutes to execute. So the product is there and all of the ideas, and now the actual platforms are beginning to emerge. And so with this confluence of both platform and product, we're beginning to achieve some of the vision that people had back in 2014. The idea of decentralized finance, an entirely independent financial system that includes asset registries, things like stocks, or at least assets analogous to stocks that exist to manage the governance of decentralized autonomous organizations, which themselves represent these new powerful ways of organizing people that are extra legal or illegal, that don't rely on a legal system or a court for recourse in the case of disagreement, that actually has their own disagreement resolution built into them. So this is the kind of stuff that is beginning to become realized right now. And when I say right now, I mean 2021, the actual epicenter of the new era in blockchain platforms. This is something we've waited a really long time for. We've seen markets go up and down, but what has finally emerged from this ferment of hype and speculation and market overexuberance is a meaningfully influential, or shall we say transformational, set of technologies that we can expect to start actually interacting with on a daily basis very soon.